We've got, this is something we do usually every fall, at least at staff level. We get together with our regional partners to plan for the upcoming flood season. Try and figure out what our approach is going to be, what our concerns are, and how we're going to do that. We've got some wonderful partners. We couldn't do any of the work we do without them. We have King County Flood District, we have King County itself, we have Pierce County, we have the Corps of Engineers. These people all make it possible for us to do what needs to be done to try and protect lives and property here within the city. This year, we've seen some activity down by Whitewater Estates and in the park. Pierce County has raised the sandbag berm on the backside of Whitewater Estates. It's on their property adjacent to the wetland. They just finished that work up this morning. King County did a bunch of work on realigning some of the HESCO barriers, those big green basket things, on White River Estates to try and put a little bit better alignment for better protection. And they're currently working in the city park, putting a second row adjacent to the first row so that they can stack another layer on top. And then they'll extend that upper layer on the river levee towards the railroad bridge between us and Auburn. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Jeanne Stypula with King County, who can give a little more detail as to exactly what they're doing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad you can make time to come out tonight. Hopefully we can share some information with you, give you a little bit more background on what's happening in your neighborhood. I'm Jeanne Stypula. I'm a supervising engineer. I work for King County Water and Land Resources Division. The way that we at the county work, we're actually the service provider to the King County Flood Control District. That flood control district is a mechanism to collect the money that actually provides the funding for these projects that are happening along the White River and all across King County. And that district is set up specifically to help improve the flood protection level in King County. So it's the Water and Land Resources staff. We're involved with floodplain management. And we work with our roads division crews. Those are the crews that are actually out doing these emergency measures that you see out in the neighborhood. So I'm going to do a few slides here and give you some background about the White River and what we've done to date, and maybe make a few more comments about how to be prepared for this winter's flood season. So these are some of the current efforts that Jim mentioned that is ongoing with both the county and the city. So this slide up here, I wanted to start with this. Maybe some of you remember 1936, but I don't. I wasn't around just then. But it's important for you all, I thought, to understand what the White River looked like then. And this is pretty much before development, land development. And you can see that this river really moved around a lot. It had a wide floodplain, there's lots of gravel, and that gravel was coming down from Mount Rainier and all the many river mouths upstream of Pacific Pond. So up in places like Buckley and Enumclaw, and all those river reaches up there. So it's a pretty young river, there's a lot of sediment, and that's what it used to look like. But now, I mean, we've all been hearing about gravel and how much gravel is in this river channel. And this next slide, there we go. We've been monitoring the White River for several years now, and one thing that this slide depicts is that it is just a river channel. The White River was channelized, it has levees built at the top of banks, so it's a very constricted channel. So after 1936, when it was channelized, all that gravel that used to spread out in floodplains is filling in the channel. And back in 1985 was about the last time that full-scale channelization and river dredging occurred, and that's where the river volume was. But by 2001, the river channel came up almost over 2 feet. And then we go to 2007, it came up another 1.4 feet. And then we come up to 2011, and it increased another 1.4 feet. So it's filling in. And I know that's nothing new to anybody that lives out here. You've seen it, longtime residents, a lot of you that I've talked with. You know this. You see that the gravel's infilling the channel. And the effect of that is there's less capacity in the river channel. And so, for those of you that were here in January 2009, as we all were, we were quite surprised by that flood. Because in 2006, it didn't flood as much as 2009. And so what's happening is that channel's filling in because it's very constricted, and it's pushing that water up and over the bank. So that's why when we were out in early October with Jim and from the City of Pacific, with the Corps of Engineers, with Pierce County, and our staff from King County, we were inspecting the river area. And so on September 30th, we had high water. And the river was up. And we were out there doing our flood preparation inspections, and we said, you know, something's a little different here. And it gave us serious concern. Another thing that we've been doing in King County is we're in the process of designing some large capital projects, and I'll make some mention of those. And we have some detailed analyses. And that's also indicating the same problem here, that the river's going to come out of its banks with a less amount of water. So it doesn't have as much capacity. So we were able to brief the Lake Central District Board of Supervisors. They were two different hats. One hat is the King County Council, but when they've got their flood district hats on, they're the Board of Supervisors. And they understood the emergency and the necessity to protect the citizens here in the Pacific. So they gave me and my staff the okay to go ahead and build these extra measures before the flood season, to get them in place before the first big flood, to provide an extra level of protection. So that's what we've been out doing, and I'll just walk through a couple more slides about what we're doing. Down in White River Estates, so we started just about last weekend or so, and we had two locations where we wanted to reposition the pesco barriers and shift them so that they were higher grade, because we don't want them to overtop. And as Jim mentioned, Pierce County and the city, they've done some improvements to the sandbag berm that's along the southerly edge of White River State. So that's all tied in now. I'm not sure if the crews are done down there with the sandbag berm, but the HESCO work was finished and the sandbag berm is now in place. So that work is completed. Right now in the park, the HESCO, the single layer of HESCOs around the perimeter of the park sit probably at the lowest point of grade of the park. And over here is the river. And so we want to bring that second layer of HESCOs up. So should the water overtop in the park, it can't overtop along 3rd Avenue. So we're basically doing double-decker, putting two HESCO barriers down and then one on top. So that will provide it's going to be 8 feet tall. It's going to be tall enough to contain water in a pretty large flood event. And then the last piece here is along 3rd Place Southeast. We want to extend the HESCOs up from the park and go northward towards the railroad bridge. This area didn't have any type of protection on it, but through our detailed analyses and what we see is happening in the river channel, we believe it could overtop by 1 or 2 feet. And if it overtopped there, it would get in behind the HESCO barriers that already are in place. And water would travel down behind the HESCO barriers, down along Megan's courts and the apartments, and travel down along the White River Estates. And it would almost feel like 2009 all over again. So we don't want the river to do an end run around the existing HESCOs, so we need to extend them northward. So we've been talking with lots of landowners there. There is a 20-foot wide river protection easement, flood protection easement, and we're working with, right at the top of the bank within that easement area, to put in these cesspit barriers. And that work is going to continue this week. We'll be working through Saturday and probably into next week to complete the work. And again, we're working very quickly. We're trying to get all the work done within 2 or 3 weeks before any big weather moves into the region. So I want to talk a little bit about big weather and floods. King County has a flood warning center that we operate, and we operate that system countywide through all our major river systems. And the way we operate it is a phased system. So phase one, when rivers start to come up, and we use USGS river gauge information and river forecasting information, we have various flow levels on each of the river systems in King County. We have one for the White River. So phase one is 5,000 cubic feet per second. And that is the amount of water that's being released from Mud Mountain Dam. And I do want to say one thing about Mud Mountain Dam. It is a single-purpose flood control dam. That's all it does is control floods. There's no water up there in the summertime. It's just the river flowing through the dam. They only hold water when there's a flood event. So at 5,000 cubic feet per second, the Corps of Engineers starts putting their people on alert. We start putting our folks on alert to be ready. And when at phase two, which is 8,000 cubic feet per second, our King County Flood Warning Center is activated, and we have staff in the office. I just want to make mention that we have a brochure in the back that talks all about our Flood Warning Center, and I'd like you all to make sure you take this with you. It has lots of information in here about what to do before a flood, after a flood, during a flood, and how to access information from our Flood Warning Center. I should mention that at 8,000 cubic feet per second, we expect the river to be overtopping its riverbanks. The park could be flooded, some other wetland areas could be overflooded, and the Corps of Engineers, city staff, and our county staff are actually going to be out in the field here during the winter, watching the river levels, because the one thing that we know is that sometimes the amount of flow doesn't necessarily tell you where the river level is at. As I mentioned, we were out here in early October. We said, you know, it's about 4,500 cubic feet per second, but the water level looks higher. So that's why the Corps, we call them river spotters. They're going to be out in the field. My staff will be out in the field. I'm sure Jim's going to be out in the field. And we're going to be all communicating with each other about what we see on this river and communicating that back up to those folks who actually operate Mud Mountain Dam and operate how much water is coming out of the dam. So that's the level of communication that will occur. At 10,000 cubic feet per second, again, the release from the dam, that means there's more water that joins in with that from all the tributary streams before it gets down here. That could be serious flooding for the community, and you need to be prepared for that and take the necessary steps to protect yourself and your home. We'll say that if the dam operators need to release 12,000 CFS, that's a really big flood. That's what they released in January 2009. So to find out this type of information, we have a couple different ways that you can help. You can access, you can call our King County Flood Warning Center when we're activated. It's a real person answering the phone. We do 12-hour shifts until the flood is over. There's also a variety of USGS gauge information that's on the website. And King County has set up this app for your iPhone or your Android. And I'm just showing here the Snoqualmie. So that far left slide, you can see all the rivers that we have. There's one for the White River. You can, tap Snoqualmie. You would go to the second slide. That's the North Fork, Middle Fork, all the gauge information about the Snoqualmie River. And then last, which is a really good part of this, is an actual graph that helps show the prediction of where the flood peak will be.
So when it's flooding on the White River, you can do the same thing. Tap on White River, it'll bring up a variety of gauges. There's 4 or 5 different gauges down here in the White River to track. And you can see what the River Forecast Center is predicting in terms of the flood peak and plan for it. It takes about 4 hours for water that's released from Mud Mountain Dam to arrive here. So just to keep that in mind, if you're watching gauge information from up at the dam, that's about what it takes. Just a few other things I want to mention. There are some copies of these slides on the back table. Please help yourself to that. We have a handout about our current work with some of the graphics that are shown on the slides here tonight. There's another couple pieces of information I put on the back table. They're kind of more planning information about overall flood planning that King County is doing. And our webpage, you can go to this webpage and find out about our more permanent projects. We have 2 large projects underway. One is on the opposite bank from Pacific. It's called the County Line Levee Setback Project. It's about 2 years out to construction. And as I mentioned, as I started to speak, this is a very constricted channel. And the County Line Levee Project will remove the existing levee to open up the channel and set the levee back behind the wetlands. And that's an important project to the city of Pacific because having that extra room for the river and its sediment will help lower flood elevations in your community. So that was our priority project to get that one going, and it's in final design and permitting. And hopefully will be constructed in about 2 years. And until then, we have the HESCO barriers in place, and we are just starting a more permanent project called the Right Bank Pacific Levee Setback Project. And we're in a very conceptual stage. We have a lot of data collection that we need to do to pull information together to help define that project a little better in the future and develop the design. It's probably about 5 years out to construction. That's why we have these temporary HESCO barriers in place. They're very stout. They have a relatively long life to them, 5 to 7 years or more, and we maintain them every year. We inspect them and make sure that they're in good condition before flood season. Last but not least, I brought a lot of these whistles, and they're back on the back table, and I know you might kind of laugh at it. It has our kingcounty.gov/flood on it. That's the web link to our King County flood warning page. You can type that in and take a look at it. These are emergency whistles. If you are in the dark, the power's out, you're not sure where you are, and you want somebody to find you, that's what the whistles are for. And they're great to just latch on your keychain, put it on your kid's backpack. It's a nice little emergency whistle. So please help yourselves to those 2 or any of the other information.